you all right? I hope you're okay. I hope you're all right. I've got a silly story today. A really silly story, and I thought you might like it. You might not. You might hate it. You might think it's too silly or daft or not real. You might not like it. I can never decide if it's real or false, this story. You know, I've often thought about it for a long time now, for years, in fact. And this story came to my mind the other day because I was staring out at the night sky and I looked up and the moon was in the sky. It was night time, so that's normal, above board. And it really reminded me of a time when I was a kid, when I was really young, just like you guys. And, well, when I was really young, we used to go to Ireland. And we used to go and stay with somebody called Phineas, my great-granddad Phineas. Great-granddad Phineas, well, he was a mysterious guy, I can tell you that for nothing. But he was old, he was so old. And we never knew how old, but he always used to tell us, oh, I'm 146 years old. That's what he'd say. He'd say, I'm 146 years old. I'm the oldest man in Ireland. Yeah. And we didn't know whether it was true or false. He didn't have a passport or anything like that. But he'd say he was born in like the 1840s or something. Anyway, we didn't know whether to believe him. He did look old. But then, did he look 146 years old? How wrinkly is 146 years old? How wrinkly do you get? Because he was basically kind of like a raisin. A raisin with trousers on. We don't know. But one night we're staying at Grandad's Phineas and he took us out and about for a little moonlight walk. And we stopped at the edge of his village, at the edge of the cliff. And he was looking up at the old moon. And he turned to me and said, oh, it's such a shame, isn't it? I said, what's the shame? Oh, you know, such a shame, isn't it? You know, the moon's so far away now. Yeah, never mind. And I stopped for a second, I thought for a second. I said, well, here, great-granddad Phineas. Yeah, he said. What do you mean it's so far away now? The moon's always far away. Oh, no. No, son, no. When I was a lad, he said, when I was your age, the moon was a lot closer. It was a lot closer. I said, well, what do you mean it was closer? How close to the moon? Well, he said, well, you know what? It was so close, you could get on it. Yeah? Oh, I was always on the moon, me. Always on the moon. In fact, if you had a ladder, you'd bring it down to the edge of the cliff, climb onto the moon, you'd have a great time. It was brilliant. I couldn't believe what Phineas told me. You know, I was young then, very young. I didn't know whether he was telling me a tale or telling the truth. I had no way of knowing. He was talking about 140 years ago. Maybe the moon was really close back then. I said, well, what'd you do on the moon? Well, said Uncle Phineas, when I was your age, a rumour went around, right? A rumour went around that on the moon, in one of its caves, was a special flower. A flower. And that flower was special because if you found it and you gave it to the person you wished to marry, they'd fall in love with you and they'd agree to marry you. Apparently. So every day during the summer, all the kids that wanted to get married, they tie a string to their belt, they tie a string to the oak tree on the cliff edge, they'd get their ladder, they'd climb up on the moon, and they'd go running around the caves looking for this flower. Well, I said, did anyone ever find it? You know, this flower that you're talking about. I found it. Grandad Phineas said to me. It was amazing. I'll tell you what happened. I used to go up bright and early in the morning with my ladder down to the cliff edge, up onto the moon, up into the caves, and I'd spend all day looking in the caves for this flower. I even went to the other side of the moon, to the deepest, darkest caves, and it was in the deepest, darkest caves where I found it. I'd been walking for hours down down this dark, dark cave. There was barely a chink of light. Finally, after hours of walking, I heard this noise, like a crackle. And I came upon a small fire. And by this fire was the special flower. Oh, it was beautiful. Beautiful. It had a purple stem, ruby red petals. And I just knew it. If I could give it to the person I wanted to marry, they'd say yes. But there was a problem, Uncle Phineas told me. And then he stopped for a bit, Uncle Phineas, and he stared up at the moon. And he sort of just let it linger there for a minute. I said, well, what was the problem? What was the problem? Why couldn't you get the plant then? Why couldn't you get the flower? Well, the problem, he said, the problem was the old fella. The old fella? Who's the old fella? Well, by the fire, by the flower, sat a sort of old fella. He was small, with sort of long, wispy hair, kind of gnarled claws, kind of cloudy, bright green eyes. He was quite a scary looking guy, really. And as I approached the fire, this old fella looked up at me. Hello, he said. Oh, he had an awful creepy voice. Hello, come closer. It was terrifying. But I saw the flower, Uncle Phineas told me. I saw the flower and I thought, I really would like to give that to Maggie. I think she'd agree to marry me. And I stopped there and I said, Uncle Phineas, yeah? I said, but your wife isn't called Maggie. I said, yeah, I know. I didn't meet, your great-grandmother till I was much older. At the time, I was really in love with Maggie. Let me tell the story. I came a bit closer to the old fella, and I said, listen, excuse me. I said, being polite. Excuse me. Can I get that flower over there, the nice flower? And he smiled at me, and it was the sort of smile that sent shivers down my spine, and he said, maybe. Maybe what? My great-granddad said. If you win it, you can have it, the old fella replied. And my Uncle Phineas looked at him, and great-granddad Phineas, looked at him and said, well, what do you mean win it? And the old fella said, I'll play you for it. I'll play you a game of cards. And if you win, you can have the flower. But if I win, you've got to feed me. Well, my great-granddad Phineas thought about this. And he looked down in his satchel that he brought with him. He didn't have a lot of food. He had a couple of slices of apple, a chunk of bread. He thought about it and said, all right, okay, all right, I'll play this game with you. I've got some bread, I've got some apple, if you win, you can have that. No, I don't eat apple, said the old fella. Don't eat bread. Great-granddad Phineas looked at me and said, what do you eat? The old fella smiled. I only eat toes. My great-granddad stepped back. What do you mean? Toes? Toes. The things on the end of your feet. Delicious. Well, my great-granddad was terrified. And he went to leave. He didn't want someone to eat his toes. But he stopped. And he thought about Maggie. And he thought about the flower. And he thought about the fact that he had 10 toes. And maybe it wouldn't be so bad if, he played once or twice. Sure, he'd lose a few. maybe he could stand to lose a few toes if it meant that he could get married to Maggie. So he said yes. And he came and sat down next to the old fella at the fire. And the old fella explained the rules. And here is a pack of cards. I'll pick up a card, and then you will. Whoever's highest wins. And he smiled, and he picked up a card. The 5. I've got the 5. And he passed the pack over to my great-granddad, and he passed the pack over. And my great-granddad pulled a card. Trembling he was, trembling and terrified and scared, and he turned the card over and he showed it up to the old fella. I've got a 2. And the old fella grinned from ear to ear. He said, it's time for my snack then. My great-granddad thought about it. He thought about running. He thought about hiding. But he decided, no, fair's fair. And he removed his sock and his shoe, and he put his foot out to the old fella, and he winced. What's he going to do to my toe? He could barely look. But the old fella just picked it off. Picked off his big toe like it was a grape off the vine. Lovely, is what he said. My great-granddad stood up, shaking, terrified, and he made his way out of the cave. And as he left the cave, the voice echoed behind him. Come back any time. He went home that night, my great-granddad, and he slept. And in the morning he looked down and he could see the toe missing, and he thought about what he'd done, how embarrassed he was to lose a toe, and how was he going to explain it. And he hadn't even won the flower. So he decided to go back. He went back, up the ladder, into the caves, down to where the crackling fire was, where the old fella was waiting. And he said, I don't want to talk about this. I don't even want to think about it, Great-Granddad Phineas said. I just want to play. If I win, I get the flower, right? Yeah, said the old fella. Okay, deal the cards. And the old fella dealt 2 cards out. 2 cards. And he gave my great-granddad one. A 5. My great-granddad looked at the card. Well, the old fella won yesterday with a 5. Maybe I'll get lucky. The old fella pulled another card out. A king. And he smiled again, and a little bit of drool ran down his jaw. Great-Granddad Phineas didn't know what to do. He thought about running again. But he was quite fair-minded, really. So he pulled down his socks, took off his shoe and all that. And the old fella scrambled over. And as he was scrambling, my great-granddad noticed just how bad the old fella's eyesight was. He could barely see, and he hadn't noticed it before. But he scrambled around, feeling around for Uncle Phineas, great-granddad's Phineas' foot. And again, picked off a toe like a grape. Lovely, he said. Lovely. You should come back tomorrow, the old fella said. I'm tired now, but I'd like to play again. And my great-granddad Phineas, now missing 2 toes, hobbled away, out of the cave, out of the moon, and home with his tail between his legs, feeling very sorry for himself. But it was during the night that he hatched a plan. He thought about how bad the old fella's eyesight was, and he went and fetched a potato. And on top of that potato, he went and found a couple of lumps of cheese, and he cut them so they were about toe-sized. And using sticks, he stuck them into the potato. And then he hid it in his bag. He thought, well, at the very least, I can play again. And when that old fella comes over to grab a toe, if I lose, I'll just put the potato out so it's coming out of my trousers. So he'll just pick off a lump of cheese and eat it. And then maybe, if I keep doing that, I'll stop losing my toes. And finally, one time, I've got to win, right? I've got to win once. And I'll get the flour, and I'll give it to Maggie, and she'll fall in love with me. Maybe. So he readied himself. He got the potato, he got the lumps of cheese, he got the bits of sticks, he got himself ready, he hid it in his satchel, and he went up to play. The next day, the old fella was poking at the fire. And my uncle sat there, my great-granddad sat down. He sat down next to him. Let's play again. Okay, the old fella said a third time. Straight away, he pulled a card from the deck that was sitting on the floor and gave it to my great-granddad. An eight. My great-granddad told me he was so excited, flabbergasted. An 8, I'm sure to win. This is it, this is a lucky time. The old fella smiled, and he smiled. It's a Jack. Jackie boy. And he laughed. You know what that means? Toe time. My great-granddad quickly rustled around, grabbed the potato from his satchel, made a big fuss of taking off his shoe, kind of bent his leg a little bit, stuck the potato down the trousers so it was kind of coming out at the end of his trousers. And the old fella scrambled around, peering in the darkness, and he pulled off a lump of cheese, thinking it was a toe. Oh, it's not as nice, he said. It's not as nice at all. Oh, my great-granddad said. I'm terribly sorry. Oh, that was awful, the old fella said. I've got other toes. My great-granddad said, we can play again. I've got other toes. They're much nicer than the last one you had. Shall we play again? The old fella looked a bit confused for a moment, but then he nodded. All right, we'll play again. And my great-grandfather went to draw himself a card, but sort of accidentally tripped up and spread the cards all over the floor. And while the cards were spread all over the floor, he reached into his satchel and he pulled out some special cards that he had already prepared. Well, the old fella drew a card. He drew another card and he lifted it up. It was a 6, the old fella said, and he started chuckling. My great-granddad realised that maybe he's chuckling because he knows what's next in the pile. But my great-granddad Phineas knew that he'd played a little bit of a trick. So when he pulled up the next card, it was a king. I've won! Great-granddad Phineas said, I've won! It's a king! You can't have any more of my toes, you've got to give me the flour. And the old fella looked so cross. He made weird grunting noises that were sort of terrifying, but my great-granddad didn't have time. He scooped down, he scooped the flour out from the bedrock, held it close to his chest, and he ran. He ran all the way out of the cave, and he could hear the footsteps of the old fella coming behind him, and the strange grunts and angry growls. Terrified, my great-granddad Phineas jumped down the ladder, ran all the way home, and locked the door. He put the flour underneath his desk and hid. The next day, When he woke up, the moon was further away. He couldn't get on it anymore. The ladders wouldn't reach. And the day after that, by the way, it had gone a little bit further away. That's what my great-granddad had said. Well, now my great-granddad's mind turned to romance. And he took the flower and he went to see Maggie in the town square. But when he got there, she was holding hands with a chap called Matthew. And she was laughing at all Matthew's jokes and smiling. And my great-granddad realised he'd spent so long on the moon playing cards with the old fella that Maggie had gone and met someone else and fallen in love. And he couldn't really blame her because Matthew was much better looking than he was. That's what he told me. Oh, he's a good-looking fella, he said. Not a lot going on upstairs, mind you. Not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but very handsome. And as he was going home with the flower kind of carried just under his arm, somebody stopped him and said, "Oh, that's a nice flower. I'll tell you what, I'll race you for it. If I win, I get the flower, and if you win, I'll give you a shilling." My great-granddad agreed, and he lost the race, and he lost the flower. And apparently the guy he raced was from another town, and he took it to the other town. And apparently, someone else challenged him to like a push-up contest. And he lost the flower to the other guy, who turned out to be a sailor, who took it all the way back to America. And in America, that sailor lost it to a cowboy in a push-up competition. And that cowboy took it out west to California. He lost it in a hot dog eating competition. And that person who won it took the flower and they left the country, and goodness knows where it is now. That's what my great-granddad told me. He says, "Oh, it's missing, so don't bother asking anyone any questions about it. They won't know." He said, "Well, that's why the moon was so much closer anyway. And I've never known if he was telling the truth or telling me a lie." What do you think? It's a silly story, isn't it? Silly story. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked it. Till next time, there'll be another story soon. One about my great-granddad Phineas again as well, because I've not told you anything about his eyebrows yet, and his eyebrows were amazing. Award-winning. And I'll tell you just how he won that award for his eyebrows in another story. Okay, keep well. Hope you're all right. See you later. Bye.